welcome everyone. This is the Rogue Leveling Guide, a video where I'm going to show you what I believe is the best leveling guide for every skill level in last Epoch. This is a bit special because I played a lot of Rogue, and some of the stuff that we played before on Rogue got nerfed a bit, so I had to change a bit the direction of the guide after the patch notes. So this is also part of a series of video where I make a video on each class, showcasing the best leveling build for that particular class. Note that after Season 2, we will be able to respec our mastery, so it will not cost an insane amount of gold. We saw the price in the patch notes, and it's approximately a third of the gold that you acquire up until that level. So for example, at level 70, this is the level I'm at currently, it's gonna cost me 100k gold, and usually you get around 300k to 400k gold if you didn't spend any of your gold until that point. So this is going to be a Falconeer, not a Blade Dancer or a Marksman. The reason why we're going Falconeer is to get a lot more clear than if we would have gone with a Blade Dancer. The damage is kind of similar on the build that I'm going to do with Blade Dancer. This is going to be a Shadow Dagger, Umbral Blade, Falconeer. On Falconeer, previous patches, we would go with Dive Bomb, doing a lot of damage for single target, Falcon Strike as well, and then Aerial Assault for the Shadow Daggers, applied by the Umbral Blades. But it got nerfed quite a lot, actually, and it's much easier to go for an Aerial Assault build, only scaling the damage of Shadow Dagger through Umbral Blades, rather than also scaling the damage of your Falcon. Quick disclaimer though, if you care only about damage, Dive Bomb Falconeer on top of Aerial Assault with Shadow Dagger is going to be more damage than what I'm going to show you today, but it requires a lot more gear, and it's a way more active playstyle. You have to press your button all the times, whereas on this build you can literally chill with Aerial Assault. You see it's going to throw blades on the ground, and those blades are going to explode, applying stacks of Shadow Dagger, and at 4 stacks it deals the damage. So the other options I have for Rogue are going to be, like I said, Dive Bomb on the Falconeer. Marksman, you're going to have the new skill, Hut Seeker, at level 30. You also are still going to have Hail of Arrows at level 35. If you do not mind the playstyle of Hail of Arrows, where you have to use Dark Quiver, get the Dark Quiver, use Smoke Bomb, and shift, and then use your Hail of Arrows for maximum damage, then this is the highest damage build as a Rogue for leveling, but it comes out pretty late. Blade Dancer, you want to play with Synchronized Strike and apply a ton of Shadow Daggers, and also proc Shadows that are going to use your Umbral Blades. So kind of similar to the Falconeer Shadow Dagger, we do the same type of damage with kind of the same abilities, but Falconeer is faster. It has access to, let me show you, this, which gives you movement speed, and in Dive Bomb, this, that gives you also movement speed for free. So you use your Falcon as a buffing ability, not to deal damage. And most of your damage is going to be Aerial Assault and Umbral Blades. So yeah, that's pretty much it for Rogue. Not a lot of changes. Before, historically, we would also use Detonating Arrow, by the way. Now you cannot use that anymore. Okay, now let's talk about gameplay and how you play the build, how you transition between different phases of the build, different steps. Because this build is played with Aerial Assault in mind. But before we unlock Aerial Assault, which is at 30 points in the Falconer passive tree, we have quite the road ahead. So we need to play with different skills before getting to Aerial Assault. We also want to play with Umbral Blades, but Umbral Blades is only unlocked after level 16 or 17. I don't remember exactly. So before you unlock Umbral Blades, I'm going to talk about what you have to play. So first, when you spawn, you are going to have, where is it? Flurry. So you replace your basic attack with Flurry. Then you're going to replace Flurry with Acid Flask. And you're going to spec Acid Flasks, by the way. So specking into damage. And Acid Flask, as you can see, has pretty good AoE. So very early, it's pretty good for clearing mobs, up until you are able to use puncture. And whenever you have puncture, you respec your acid flats for puncture. And puncture is quite special because of this node right here. It's going to give you the Bleeding Fury buff, which is a buff that stacks up to 3 times. And it gives you a bleed chance for each stack. So you kind of want to refresh the duration of your stacks every few seconds. Another particularity of how you play puncture is you use a bow. You do not use a melee attack. The reason why we're using a bow is because the clear is way higher. Like melee attack only clears in front of me, like let's say up until the end of the bridge, whereas a bow clears all the way from left to right of your screen. So how you play it? You never use puncture, or at least in most situations, you do not use puncture in front of you. You always use it behind you. So let's say I'm on this bridge. There are monsters on the right. I'm just going to go past them. They're going to follow behind me in a line. And that means that I can hit most of them with my puncture. Then I continue. This is how you play with puncture and a bow. You are also going to unlock decoy at 10 point in the passive tree. So decoy is absolutely insane. It is going to taunt all the mobs for 2.5 seconds. So defensively, it's an insane tool. Whenever you feel like you're going to be in danger, or if you are in danger, you just pop your decoy and then you can run away and hit mobs. I forgot also to talk about shift. You unlock it before you unlock decoy. Shift is your main movement skill. You are going to use it for the majority of your playthrough during leveling. You are only going to replace it by RL Assault with, like I said, at 30 point into the Falconer tree. So it's going to last a while using shift. Then whenever you unlock your Umber Blade, that's when you are going to replace puncture. And we are not going to use a bow anymore. We are going to use 2 weapons with 1 dagger, and we are going to throw our Umber Blades like I'm doing right now. So at the start, they are not going to explode. They're going to basically spin indefinitely. I mean, not indefinitely, but how many seconds is it again? 4 seconds. Yeah. They cannot shotgun, meaning if I place multiple, and you see there is a mob in between my 2 Umbral Blades, he's only going to get hit by one Umbral Blade that is spinning, not the 2 of them. It has been nerfed over time. But for a single target, you can actually spam your Umbral Blades, and this makes it so that the dummy gets hit more than if you were only putting 1 spinning blade. The reason why we want the dagger is because of this node right here. Otherwise, we cannot apply Shadow Dagger, and Shadow Dagger is our source of damage. Basically, Shadow Dagger is an ailment that deals a lot of damage and guarantees a crit. So we don't even build crit chance, we build directly crit multi. So you see, added damage is applied at 340% effectiveness. Around that time, maybe even before, I believe, you are going to unlock your mastery, meaning that you can use your Falcon. You summon your Falcon. You can use the Falcon Strike ability for a bit of clear. It's nice. So if you are out of mana, prioritize using Umbral Blades. Next, around level 20, we're going to spec into Smoke Bomb. So on bosses and rares or champions, basically mobs that have high HP, you're going to use your Smoke Bomb, which is going to buff a lot of your damage, and then you just spam with Umbral Blade. That's the playstyle on bosses. Always use your Smoke Bomb on cooldown, use your Umbral Blade, and whenever it gets difficult, there's a big AoE or some shit, you use your decoy. One last thing about this setup before we go into RL Assault is whenever you're going to shift, it's going to leave behind a shadow. So right now it's not doing it, but whenever you're going to shift, there's a shadow, and the shadow is going to leave behind an Umbral Blade. So the play style during clearing areas before getting to bosses is you're going to throw your Umbral Blades like usual, and whenever you shift, it's going to proc the Umbral Blade, and the Umbral Blade is going to kill stuff behind you. So you're going to get basically passive XP. You don't need to clear everything. You can just clear stuff on the side. And if you go through packs of mobs, try to time your use of shift in the pack of mob, because it's going to proc the Umbral Blade inside the pack of mob, and it's going to kill them. All right, so after some point, you're going to unlock RL Assault, and what we're going to do is we're going to replace shift for RL Assault. We are also going to replace decoy at some point with dive bomb. So we are not going to use shift anymore. Aerial assault is basically a movement ability that gives us a bunch of stats. For example, it recovers HP, gives us frenzy, haste, and it's also going to spawn umbral blades. I mean, we don't really see it right now. We here. So you see how it spawned all the blades. So pretty good for clearing, because you do that, boom, your blade explode and it clears a lot of the mobs on your way. So you use that on cooldown, try to time it to arrive at big packs of mobs, so you clear all the mobs. The blades are also auto-targeted. So you see when I do that, around this enemy, all the blades go into the enemy. And you still use your smoke bomb on cooldown. You still use your umbral blades on cooldown, or bosses, I mean. So yeah, bit of a flashbang build. Like it's very flashy. And after some point, around level 50, you are able to spec your final skill, which is going to be Dive Bomb. And Dive Bomb, you want to use it on cooldown during clear. It's going to give you a buff for movement speed, this one. And for single target damage, it's going to apply Physical Arrest Shred, and also gives you back cooldown recovery speed for your aerial assault and mana. So really, really good. Meaning on bosses, after we unlock Dive Bomb, what you do is you press Dive Bomb, Aerial Assault, Smoke Bomb, and Umbral Blade on cooldown. Just press those 4 buttons. You can still move a bit. Like, if I press my left click. The only skill that you do not use is Falcon Strike. Falcon Strike is not going to do much for the build. For skill trees, so like I said, early you spec into Acid Flask into the damage node. After that you respec for Puncture, and you go on the left. And then on the top for Bloodthirst, you max this out, and then you put 1 point into Frenzy, and then you go back into Hunger. At level 8, you are going to spec into Shift, so you put 2 points into Velocity and 3 points into Momentum, then 1 point back into Velocity, and then you go down to Dancing Shadows. After that, you are going into Swift Recovery, 3 points, 1 point into Shadow Sleep, 1 more point into Swift Recovery to max it out, and then you put the remaining points into Shadow Recuperation. At around level 16 or 17, you are going to unlock Umbral Blades. So respec your Puncture for Umbral Blades. You are going to go for the Blade Spin first, then for the Precision Cut node, and finally the Shadow Dagger. After that, the build is basically online. So you want to go next into Umbral Remnant, then for Loathing, and then for the Exploding node. After that, you max Burst of Agony, and finally you go for Cold Snap Strikes. And last point is going to be in Downfall. At level 20, you spec into Smoke Bomb. Smoke Bomb, you want to rush the Shadow Chants, then Smoke Blades, then Lingering Fumes. After that, we want to rush Cleansing Steam. Have a bit on Cleanse and Silver Shroud stack. And final point is going to be Shrouded in Darkness. At level 35, we are going to unlock Falconry for like specking into it. We already have Falconry before, but we can spec into it now. So you go for Wake of Wings, max it out, and put... no, actually, you go for Marking Strikes, excuse me. And then you go for Wake of Wings. Then you want to go down to Falconer's Journey, 2 points into Side by Side, 1 point into Avian Stamina, and 1 point into Hunter's Spoils. Then 2 points into Falcon Screech, 1 point into Frightful Feathers. Then you're gonna max Avian Stamina, and final point into Falcon Screech. Okay, between level 35 and 50, you are going to unlock Aerial Assault. So you're gonna replace Shift for Aerial Assault as soon as you get it. And you want to rush Twilight Strikes. So 2 points into Avian Hunter, 1 point into Projectile Training, 3 points into Twilight Strike, and then 1 point into Plumed Daggers. Next, you want to go for Healing Gust. So max this. And then you want to have 2 points into Falcon's Havoc. And the final 2 points are going to be in the cooldown recovery speed, Avian Hunter. We max this. And finally, at level 50, we are going to spec into Dive Bomb. So we rush Cloud Gatherer. Then we put 1 more point into Focus Hunter. Then we go on the left with United Assault, 1 point into Featherfall, 1 point into Talon Blades, 1 point into Gale of Blades. Then you go at the bottom, Hindering Big Strike, 5 points into Flesh Tearing Talons, 3 points into Rapid Pursuit. This is gonna increase our damage because It's going to reduce the cooldown of Aerial Assault, and it's going to also give us mana. And final 2 points into Featherfall. Next, for the passive tree, pretty simple. We are not going to respec our passive tree, by the way. I made it so you don't have to respec, so it's a bit easier to follow. But it's not the most optimized way to play this build, as we are going to put points into the Blade Dancer tree, but ideally you would respec some of those points and get Aerial Assault a bit early compared to what we're going to do with this build. So we're going to start with Swift Assassin, max it out, then 1 point into Gil, 1 point into Evasion, then max Agility, then 4 points into Sapping Strikes, and final point into Twin Blades. Then we are going to go into the Blade Dancer tree, 5 points into Pursuit, and 4 points into this. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's just going to increase our damage by 50% on bosses, so insane upgrade for damage. Then we go into the Falconer tree. We are going to rush Aerial Assault. To do that, we're going to put 5 points into Raptor's Wing, then 8 points into Wilderness Scout, 7 points into this, 5 points into Avian Hurl. So you put 1 point in there, then you're going to put 4 points into Fencing Grace, then 1 point into Intuitive Connection, and right before getting Intuitive Connection, we were going to be able to use Aerial Assault. That's when you respec your shift for Aerial Assault. Intuitive Connection is going to make, by the way, our Dive Bomb instant, or Falcon Strike as well instant. Pretty smooth for the build. After that, we are putting 3 points into Fencing Grace, 1 point into Avian Hurl, and then we are going to go back into Blade Dancer. Here we put 8 points into this, 1 point into Cloak of Shadows, 8 points into Shroud of Dusk, and then we go back into the Falconer tree and we start putting points into Needle-like Precision. So this is going to mean that you are going to be level 70, but you can play this build after reaching level 70. You want to have points into Needle-like Precision. This is pretty good as well for sustain. We can also max Evasion. Didn't max Evasion because I focus on damage, but you can have a lot more tankiness if you max Evasion. We also have like a bunch of other nodes in there that can increase our damage, but overall, those are like the main points. For gear, it's going to be pretty simple on Rogue, except for defensives, because defensives, you don't have access to a lot of them in the passive tree. So all of your sources of resistances and health, most of them will come from the gear itself. Early on, for damage, we are going to use a bow with a quiver, obviously. After you unlock your Umbral Blades, we want to do wield one undead weapon. So at least one dagger, and the other one can be a mace or whatever that gives you like the most amount of stats. After that, around level 27, you're gonna unlock the Chris Dagger base, and those dagger are best in slot for the build. So you want to do wield them because they give critical strike multiplier, which is a stat that is gonna multiply our damage by quite a lot. And at level 70, we are gonna have the Doomstar mace, which is gonna give us even more flat damage and crit multi. We want to focus on crit multi, on the stats, but also on increased physical damage for the increasing our damage when we have Umbral Blades, because increased damage is not really given in the passive tree or the skills, but we get a lot of flat damage through Smoke Bomb with this node right here, Smoke Blades. This is 160 flat damage. And then we want to have, then we also don't care about Armor Shred. We get free sources from Aerial Assault whenever we spec into it with Armor Shred chance. Before we can get some sources of Armor Shred, it's going to increase our damage decently because we're dealing physical damage with Shadow Dagger. The very important stat to have on Helmet, Body Armor, and even on Idols for this build is Physical Penetration with Shadow Daggers. If you have it on Helm, you want to shatter the helm or try to retrieve with Runes of Removal the affix and put it on the Body Armor, because as you can see, the value on Body Armor scales a bit higher. So instead of being capped at 45% at tier 5, you're capped at 67%. So that's a lot of penetration for the build. Then we want to have increased throwing attack speed, flat throwing damage, but honestly, throwing attack speed is better than flat throwing damage. and increase damage is better than of those. Crit multi, you can get it on weapons, on the amulet, and on the relic. We also scale our damage with cooldown recovery speed, because Aerial Assault is going to provide us with a ton of damage whenever we pop it, but it has a cooldown, so try to reduce the cooldown with cooldown recovery speed on the belt and on the boots. By the way, on the belt, you want to have a source of cleanse. Just an extra source of cleanse, always nice on potion use. We can cleanse on the build with Smoke Bomb, by the way, with this, but it's going to come pretty late into the build. It's like how many points? 10, 14, 16, 18, 19 points. Yeah, you won't have it until endgame. Try to get it on your belt. Another very important stat for when we switch to Umbral Blades is going to be melee damage leech. You want to have it on your gloves, so you don't move your gloves. You can move your weapons if you find better ones, and that's the advantage of having it on the gloves, but it's going to scale a bit lower than on the weapon. Still, it's going to be fine because we're doing a ton of damage. So in terms of resistances, we want to fix those as much as possible with item bases. So I have a lot of item bases on my character right now that are helping me fixing my resistances. So if you look at my resistances right now, I don't have a single suffix for resistance, and those are my resistances. So I have Bone Amulet at level 58, super important. Physical res, necrotic res. By the way, physical res is probably the most important res to have for leveling. So much physical damage in the game. Brigandine Armor in combination with Bone Armor, Bone Amulet, sorry, can give you close to the cap. It can even cap you if you are max. It can give you 75% physical res. Then we have Ivory Ring to cap our necrotic res in combination with Bone Amulet. Gold Ring to get elemental resistances. Your boots are also going to give you resistances. So you have Aeroborean boots that gives you cold res, and Solarium Greaves later on that gives you fire res. Antidote Vial, this one is super late, 68 level requirement. It gives you poison res and increased leech rate, so pretty good. Crusader Gauntlet with void res. You could also pick up the gloves that gives you endurance percent, because we're playing with health, not really with ward. But the new affix that gives ward per second and ward decay threshold, I would put it no matter what on my rings and on my amulet. It's better than health, than res. It's better than anything in terms of suffix right now from the values that they showed us in the patch notes. Yeah, and then you just put health on every piece of gear that you can once you have kept your res, and you're pretty much done. The only thing that I didn't talk about is for when you play a bow, you want to have physical damage and chance to bleed, chance to ignite on hit, bow attack speed. Those are, and damage over time as well. Those are all the affixes for damage when we are using puncture with a bow. All right, now let's talk about the uniques. There are quite a few that are really good for the build. I'm first going to talk about the boots, which you can use your Rune of Ascendance on. I wouldn't recommend using them on the boots though. I would recommend using them on One Undead Mace, and I'm going to talk about that in a few moments. So for boots, we have Morning Frost. We are a class that stack dex, so we are going to have a lot of dex, and this gives us cold damage for attack and spells per point of dexterity. I don't know if it's still double dip with throwing attack damage and melee attack damage, because we're getting both funneled into our Shadow Dagger damage. It takes both, so this could be pretty good, but the downside is it's even harder for us to cap our physical and cold res. So try to see if it can fit into the build if you drop one. Then we have Advent of the Erased. Since we are a class that get haste all the time, we have such a high chance to get it on hit, and we hit so many times. The last line basically gives us ward per second, because we gain between 30 and 60 ward whenever we refresh or gain haste, and it has a 1 second cooldown, and we are going to have like it most of the time when we attack. So pretty good source of ward. Also less damage taken over time. Since it's a Weaver's Will item, you can get fixes up to tier 7 even during the campaign. It's kind of crazy. After that, another Weaver's Will item, Gambit of an Erased Rogue. Just +1 to all rogue skills and a chance to take less damage. But it's not really useful. It's more for the +1 to rogue skills. Next, we have Thorn Slinger. So Thorn Slinger, really good for the build. Early on, it gives us bleed chance on it, for the puncture setup. +1 to physical skills. So puncture is a physical skill. Umbral Blade is a physical skill, etc. Movement speed, really nice. Quality of life. Throwing attack speed, really good for us to throw our daggers faster. Overall, really strong on this. But it's more about offense than defense, let's be honest. Then we have the gloves. Lyraca's Claws have an insane amount of crit multi for us. Good base, because it gives us endurance %. We have Riverbend Grasp. This one gives us a lot of flat damage and increased damage. Also, it has a nice roll on health, bit of dodge rating. So that's kind of nice. And finally, we have the body armors. So the Kestrel is going to give us straight up +1 to all skills. Increase effect of haste, so basically more movement speed when we have haste. Gives us also increased movement speed. So I would replace this if I were in 2 monos, but before monos, I would use this, actually. And the last one I have in my inventory right now is this one. I don't know how to pronounce that, honestly. It gives us +1 to, or 2 to throwing attacks, so for our Umbral Blade. Increase AoE, really good for us. All res, really good for us. And +2, not +2, 5% to 8% movement speed, so still really good for us. The base is flat armor and increased dodge rating, not too bad. It's not the best, but yeah, really solid unique. And the final one is one of the new uniques. I'm gonna put it on the screen right now. And this is absolutely insane, one-handed mace that you can have. It's basically the Doomstar base, but you can equip it at level 35, and you have a 1 in 5 chance of rolling it with Rune of Ascendance. This gives us more than 100% crit multi, and since it's a Weaver's Will item, you can even get crit multi on top of it, or increased damage. Like, imagine if you get like T7 increased physical damage on it, like, that's absolutely crazy for the build. Like, so much stat on this weapon. And yeah, that's pretty much it for all the items. So there you have it, the rogue leveling build, using Shadow Daggers, using your Falcon to proc the Shadow Daggers from your Umbral Blade in Aerial Assault, and using some other abilities to buff your damage. Pretty fast build, really good damage curve as well. You get an insane amount of damage very early into the progression. The only downside for a rogue is the defense. Defense is not as high as other builds. So try to get a lot of good pieces of gear defensive-wise. And yeah, try to dodge the damage by just being faster. That's pretty much it. All of the guides that I made, including this one, are going to be on Maxroll. There's going to be a written guide, and I'm also going to do a run up until Abomination to show you kind of the progression of the build. Because after Abomination, for all the leveling guides, they are kind of set in stone, and yeah, they don't really change much. You can also play this build in Empowered. It's going to be fine. You're going to clear, I don't know up until how much corruption, but it's still going to be fine. And yeah, if you have any question, feel free to tell me in the comment section. And good luck on your adventures for Season 2. Hope you have an amazing start, a good RNG, and yeah, see you soon, guys.